Hello and welcome to my overview of the currency and commodity market. Now what we're going to have a look at today is some fundamental news. We're going to have a look at the numbers coming out this week and the ones that already did come out. And I'm going to have a look at some relative strengths in the market to see if we can figure out where we would like to place some interesting trades in different currency pairs. So first of all, let's have a look at the overall fundamental side of things. That is important. Even though I do my trading from technical analysis, it is definitely important to have an eye on all the numbers coming out. So if you're taking a look at what did come out Monday, and I should say I'm just using my FX book here, you can use any of these sites, there are a ton of them. They're pretty much just recording the numbers coming out. There were some news coming out of Japan here early Monday, but they didn't really move the market. One thing that did move the market, and that was mostly the stock market, but also some interest rates in United States. That was the poor numbers coming out of China, where we could see that their retail sales were quite a lot worse than expected. They had expected a year-over-year growth of 11.5%, a little drop from 12.1, but it was down to 8.5. Also, the industrial production year-over-year were expected to be 7.8, this was 6.4. So right now there's a big speculation in the market going on about if, for instance, Fed in United States should start to have this taper where they decrease the bond purchase they do every month. They're buying at a rate of $120 billion of bonds right now, 80 billion in treasuries and 40 billion in the mortgage-backed securities. So right now there's a lot of discussion and debate going on if they are gonna decrease that purchase and maybe raise the interest a bit earlier than expected. And these numbers from China, I think, gave Fed something to think about. They gave them a little pass here, maybe saying that the world economy is not going as quickly as we think. So, well, we get a look at that later today, where we're going to have the Fomc Minutes. What else came out this week that we should look at? Let's just have a look here. Well, we did get, and this is Tuesday, we did get some numbers from UK here. Not something that really moved the market. We did get some unemployment rates and some GDP growth numbers from EU. They were close to what was expected. And again, the reason why they are so high is, of course, that we are comparing to the big hole here after the crisis last spring. What else are on the plate? Well, then yesterday evening there was some numbers coming out, or afternoon my time here, there was some numbers coming out from United States about the retail sale in the United States, and that pretty much built up to the case where Fed might have an excuse for not decreasing their bond purchase, since the retail numbers were quite low and they were in line with these consumer confidence numbers that were there last Friday. That also showed a large decrease in consumer confidence. So this might actually give Fed this little breathing room where they can say, yeah, well, things are not going as quickly as we think. So this might be the retail sales here that they can use for that. Also, when we're looking at today, actually, again, we got some numbers as the producer price index, which is the rate as with the producers' prices are increasing, both on output and input. They were both quite high here, which can easily lead into consumer inflation. We also saw the consumer price index, the CPI, which was a bit lower than expected, but still an inflation around 2% here. So what I'm gonna have a look at later today, I think can really move the market significantly, is the FOMC minutes. This is where Powell and Fed are telling more details about their interest rate decisions at the last meeting, and this is where we can get an indication as to if they're gonna decrease the bond purchase and if they're gonna move the increase in interest rates in the United States onto a bit of an earlier date instead of 2023. If we're looking at the rest of the month, oh yes, there was one thing here. This was this morning. It was before I woke up, so I almost forgot. The New Zealand were to determine their interest rates, and we have that right here. It was 4 o'clock in the morning my time. That's why I almost forgot. They had it at a 0.25%, but it was expected that they would increase it to 0.5%. And a lot of analysts have been talking about this being the beginning of the interest rate increase in the Western world as well. But they actually kept it at a 0.25%, which of course immediately got the New Zealand dollar to fluctuate wildly. It had a huge drop due to this. And there can be a number of reasons for this. It can be the increase in COVID numbers. It can be a ton of different things. But the Central Bank of New Zealand, they said that they would keep the interest rate at a 0.25%. So that is also a bit of a puzzle in the big jigsaw puzzle here as to if Fed is gonna increase or keep the rates steady. All right, what else comes up here? We have Tuesday, that is tomorrow. We get some unemployment numbers from that can move the Australian dollar maybe a bit, and we're gonna have, of course, as always on Thursdays, we're gonna have the initial jobless claims. It keeps climbing slowly down, and yeah, if it keeps this direction, of course, at some point we will get down to the original 180,000 to 200,000 on the initial jobless claims that we used to see before the crisis last year. Then there's an interest rate decision from China coming up Friday, and yes, I think that is about the same. Some retail sales from Canada as well that can move the Canadian dollar. Alright, that so much for the fundamentals here. So let's have a look at the overall markets. Now, when I'm looking at the markets, I'm using a lot of different things to evaluate where I should put in my trades. First of all, let's just have here the most confusing of them. I will make more explanatory videos about them. Now, right now I'm showing this in TradingView, but I'll also show it later in MT5, since you can also get these indicators here. What this is, and I know it looks confusing, but what this is basically just a visualization of the relative strength of each currency. For instance, you can see the black one is the Swiss franc. So here you can see this is on a daily chart. You can see that when the Swiss franc is going up the black line here, it means that the Swiss franc compared to all of the other 7 larger currencies are gaining strength towards most of them. At some point it tips down here, and the Swiss franc is more in a short position, and at some point it is tipping up again. This is on the daily chart, and a bit more messy over here. You can see it on a 4-hour time frame. I'm not going lower than that. And right now, what we can see here is that both the Swiss franc and also the red line here, that is the Japanese yen, they are both very high and they are tipping down. That is normally, when we see that from a very high point, it is normally a sign that we're going to have some weakness in both Swiss franc and the yen. And as you might know, they are normally mentioned as a safe haven currency. Sometimes the dollar is in there as well. The green line here is the dollar, and you can see that one might be tipping over as well. That might show us that people are moving a bit away from safe haven, and I'll have a look at some different combinations here in a short while. What we can see is that down here we have actually this light blue here, which is the New Zealand dollar. We have the dark blue, which is the Australian dollar. And then we have the purple line here, which is the Canadian dollar. These three are all three seeming to bottoming out. And these are what is normally called as the commodity currencies, meaning that coal, oil, a lot of metals and so on, when we see these commodity currencies tipping up, it is normally a bullish signal for instance, oil, some metals and so on. So what I'm going to have a look at today is actually to see if we can find some good combinations where we are going short the Swiss and the yen, and we might be going long on the on one of the commodity currencies here. I won't confuse you anymore about this. I'll make more videos about it later, as I promised. Now, another thing I also do when I trying to figure out the temperature of the different currencies is that in here in TradingView I have made different groups, and here you can see I have the Swiss franc group. Now normally, for instance, people would look at this pair, the Swiss dollar, they would call it the dollar Swiss, meaning that it would be with US dollar as a base currency and then Swiss as a second currency. But as you can see here, I have chosen to build a group where the Swiss franc is the base currency of all the pairs. You can easily do that. And that means that when I'm scrolling down here, I can see if there is a tendency, a trend here in the Swiss franc. For instance, we can see Swiss towards dollars, Swiss towards euro, and right here I should say I have the weekly, the daily, the 4-hour and the 1-hour chart here. And as you can see here, we can try to see if we are running into some resistance. For instance, the Swiss towards the British pound, we could easily draw some sort of resistance here where we could be looking for a short in the Swiss franc here. We can see the Swiss franc towards the yen. It actually seems that the Swiss franc is a bit stronger than the yen. We can take that into consideration. We have it towards the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar, the New Zealand dollar here. And we can do that with all of the groups here. I also have, for instance, the Aussie group, Australian dollar here. And we can see that it is pretty much going down right now, at least, towards pretty much all of the different currencies, but it might be bottoming out, and that is where we might be looking for some interesting trades today. So let's have a look at it. I'm basically trying to see if I can find some interesting setups where we are going short the Swiss and the yen towards maybe some long in the Canadian, the New Zealand and the Australian dollar. But of course, this is just some trade ideas. You should have a look at them all yourself. But let's have a look at them. Let's start with the CAD Swiss here, Canadian dollar, Swiss franc. Now what I'm doing, here you can see I marked up, I had a trade the other day. What I'm normally marking up is if we have an overall trend on the daily chart, and if we are getting into some resistance. You can see we had a bearish trend in the Canadian Swiss here, and we went up into a resistance zone here on the daily chart. And what I'm doing then is that I'm trying to time my trading on the 4-hour, sometimes on the 1-hour trade chart, but mostly on the 4-hour. So we had a large consolidation zone here on the 4-hour chart on the CAD Swiss, and when it broke down here, I took it and I put a target on at 1.5 R, meaning 1.5 times my initial risk. Now that was because I was not at my screen at this point. If I had been there, I would have tried to let it run. Sometimes I use my as you can see here, my hourly chart to see if there's still some momentum on an hourly basis, and I could easily have let it run to down here, squeezing a bit more out of it. But I was not at my screen, and that's one of the reasons why I'm normally trading the 4-hour chart, because that gives me a lot of free time on a daily basis. But what do we see right now in the CAD Swiss? We can see that if the CAD is starting to turn up and the Swiss is starting to turn down, we would see a rise in the CAD Swiss. As you know, when you're trading a currency pair, you are always long one of them and short the other. So what we want to have a look at here is, do we have some support here? And we actually do. We could easily make this a bit wider here. So what I will be looking for in the CAD Swiss here is, now we push down towards the area here, try to get up, we're getting pushed down a bit, and what I will try to see if I can find is somewhere to get an entry here where we have been pushed a bit down, preferably making a new higher bottom here on the 4-hour chart and then being pushed up. What I will do in that case is that I will put on a trade. Let's say we're getting in here. I'll put my stop below the bottom here, and I will, at least if I'm not at my computer, try to make 1.5 time my risk here. That is what I normally do. You could also go for the former, this resistance area here. Normally I don't take a trade if the resistance area is closer than 1-to-1. If I can get in here, then I simply get a bit too little of a reward out of it. But that is one of it. That's the CAD Swiss. Another one, of course, is the New Zealand dollar Swiss. We can take that. We can find it out here. It's easier. The New Zealand dollar Swiss is coming right here. And as you can see, a bit of the same picture. It was shot down. I was actually also in this trade. I was in several trades here on the downside. It was quite a quite profitable trading couple of days here. But what you can see here is it is hitting the support area down here, and we are seeing the exact thing as we did in the other pair. It's pushing down, getting rejected, trying to get down again, and it might break through. I'm not predicting what way this will go because I have absolutely no idea. But if it gets up here and break this this top, I can go long here, and I'll probably put my stop somewhere down here and easily getting 1.5-to-1, maybe 2-to-1 in reward to risk. All right, Aussie Swiss is another one of them, and we'll just find that up here. Now the Aussie Swiss, as you can see, it actually broke through this this support here, and it tried to get up. It's getting pushed down now, and I will probably not get into the Aussie Swiss, even though that it might tell us that the Swiss might be turning down and the Aussie might be turning up. Now when it has broken this, it is confirming this downward structure, and I don't really like that. To be interested in this, it should actually perform something like this: come up, get down, find some support here, and show some strength upwards. But to be honest, if I'm looking at an hourly time frame right now, it is showing more of some strength to the downside here. So the Aussie Swiss would probably not be one I would really favor in this case. Then we have the CAD Yen. Also bullish CAD and short the yen, if these pairs of course are turning direction. We don't know that yet, but that is at least the thesis here. As you can see, we are hitting a bottom here on the daily chart. Now what I don't really like is that we have this range here. We don't really know which range it will keep within. Should it be the large range here, then we have to go a lot further down to find some support, or will this be the area where we find support? Now no matter what, as you can see here, if it gets up, it has actually been wobbling a bit around, and we might, if it goes up here, we might get a good long position here. But if we are going to get in here with a stop down here below the lows, then we cannot really get, well, it is close. We might be able to get 1.5 R, but there's not as much space above this. I would have preferred it just keeping going down here and then showing the turning here. So the CAD Yen, I'm not completely certain about that one. The next one is the New Zealand dollar yen. Let's have a look at that one. Coming up here, as you can see, the same picture. We are in a range. There's not really any trend. There was a downtrend, but then we are stuck in this mid-range here. This large green candle here on the 4-hour time frame, or you can see it here on an hourly. This is where the news came out that New Zealand dollar chose to keep their interest rate low, and that sent a lot of fluctuations in here. It should keep the New Zealand dollar down, you would say, and that's also the reason why it was sent so far down here, because when a country chooses to keep a low rate or to decrease their interest rate, the currency normally follows down, and of course the opposite when they choose to increase the interest rate. So right now we are at this very good support level here. We have been going up, have been sent a bit down, and we could see if we can find some upwards movement here. Now both on the on the New Zealand dollar Swiss and on this New Zealand dollar yen, I will be a bit careful taking trades here today, because there are a lot of uncertainties here while the traders and investors of the world are trying to adapt to the fact that they are not increasing their interest rates anyway. All right, the last one here on the potential trade list is the Aussie Yen. It's coming up here. And as you can see, this one is definitely not one I will take in a long direction. If we're looking at the daily chart first here, we can actually see that the downtrend is extremely well defined. I'm not often drawing trend channels on these, but if you're looking at this and if we're trying to put this one on, there's definitely not really any technical argument that this will start to go up. There's no resistance zone, no support zone. We could try and find something from back here, but I normally don't go that far back. I like to see to watch the recent tops and bottoms, and right now it is showing some downwards movement. Now it could easily turn a bit up, but I would be very afraid of taking a long up towards these bottoms. I would be more inclined to think that we were going down from here. But right now I will not take this short because first of all, we are not up here. I normally trade from these support resistance area, and secondly, right now it seems like the Aussie might be turning a bit up and the Yen might be turning a bit down. So the CAD Swiss, the New Zealand dollar Swiss, might be two of the best potential trades today. Now to have a quick look at what I'm actually in right now, which trades I'm in, you can see I'm in the Euro CAD, and normally my trades they can easily take days, so sometimes even weeks. But what I did here is I had the Euro CAD. We were in a downwards trending market on the daily time frame here. It spiked up to hit this resistance area up here, and right now, this was just a day or two ago, right now I have a trade here that is just around break even, but where my target is down here 1.5 times my risk. That is one of the trades I'm in right now. Another one is the Euro Yen. It's also short. It's actually a bit in the negative right now, but as you can see, it went up here towards this resistance area, turned downwards, and I took it here yesterday on this bar here. And well, right now I don't mind it wobbling a bit around. It will get down here, I hope, eventually. As I said, many of my trades, a few of them are within a day, but most of them are several days and sometimes several weeks. Then I'm in the pound CAD here, and the pound CAD, it's also a short. Let's just have a look at it here. As you can see, also the a bit of a downturn trending market. You could argue that has started to make some upwards trending moves here. I was looking at this one and some former resistance areas here, and I was taking a short down towards this area here. It has been in the positive for a while now. It is, well, it's just wobbling a bit around, and it has actually been on for over a week now, so I don't mind that. I'll just let that evolve. Then I have the dollar yen. It was a long trade I took yesterday, and normally you could say that the dollar yen had been in some sort of a downwards trend, but if we're looking at the daily chart here, you can see that it has actually established. For instance, I would not take a long here because the downwards trends were too clear, but then we went up here and down, and it is actually starting to build a sideways market here, and in that case I don't mind. I was actually in this one. I took a short in this one, and I don't mind having a long in this one as long as we are in this market. Nobody knows if we're going up or down or whatever we're going to do, but if the Fomc minutes today are if they are suggesting that the Fed could start to taper, start to decrease their bond purchase, that would definitely send the interest rates in an upwards position or direction, and that would also send the dollar upwards and definitely the yen downwards. So that should be able to help this, depending a bit on what Powell he says tonight. And that is tonight my time here and Danish time. Now the last position I have here is a dollar position, and it is actually a bit old, and I wouldn't say I regretted it, but I kind of I took it on a former bottom here, but it was actually in a downwards position. I had a short here that I made good money on, and then I actually took this long. and it was kind of a combination between some technical analysis and a look at the fundamentals. There are a lot of mixed messages in the oil market right now. What I do think, but this is only an idea, I think the COVID case is a bit too overplayed, and I think actually that there will be more demand for oil than many analysts think. But at least it met a support area here. I took it here. It has been going downwards a lot, but right now we are moving a bit up, and it might, if we are getting up here and I'm a bit concerned about the direction, I might take it off when we are getting close to the break even. So that is the trades I am having on right now, and well, the reason why they're not more, sometimes I have 10 or 12 trades on, is actually that I closed a lot of my trades yesterday and the day before with some huge profits. It has been one of my most profitable months for a long time that here in August. There have been some nice trends, and I have been able to easily get a lot of 1.5 hour profits. So that is my take on the market right now, and I will get back to you shortly with some more thoughts about the market, where I think it's going, and some ideas as to what to look for. I should say that if you want to get a very quick overlook at the market, you can also always have a look at the let me just see here. I'm having a group here called the Forex index, and all the larger indexes have a ticker called something with XY. So the yen is JXY, the dollar is DXY, the British pound is BXY, Australian dollar we have here, we have New Zealand dollar, we have Canadian, we have Euro, and we have the Swiss franc. And this is where, in some sort of weighted index, you can find all the details about it on the internet, but in some sort of weighted index you can start to see where, in what direction on a chart the overall currency is moving. So right now here it looks like the Swiss franc is going a bit to the upwards position, but it might be turning around. It is showing some sort of a bearish engulfing pattern here, so it might be turning down. Let's hope so. That would help our case, especially if then we're looking at the Canadian here. Sorry, it was not the Canadian, it was the yeah, there was a CAD Swiss and there was a New Zealand dollar Swiss that we were looking at for some potential trades. So these are a bit of an easy way around it, that you can get some idea of the overall direction of the currency. I hope this helped you. Always feel free to ask me questions, and I'll get back to you soon. Take care out there in the market. Bye bye.